I have always operated on concrete proof. Ghosts, spirits, the paranormal, they were comfort stories for those who needed to fill the silence of the unknown. I was immune to superstition. At least I was until 2002. My journey took me across the globe to Cambodia to visit relatives. Stepping into Phnom Penh, the air itself felt historic, dense with the past. But where the fear really took root was outside the city, in a quiet, almost forgotten village called Svay Rholom. My relative's house was large, an old, multi-level home set against a backdrop of vast, empty fields. It had that inescapable aura of places where decades have unfolded, places that remember things. My room was upstairs. After the grueling travel, the only thing that mattered was the promise of a long, solitary shower. The room had its own small, enclosed bathroom. I turned on the water, letting the steam fill the space, trying to wash away the jet lag and the dust of the road. I closed my eyes, shampoo lathered deep into my hair, completely lost in the moment. That's when the intrusion began. I heard it clearly over the running water. My name. I froze. I told myself it was nothing. I was occupied. They could wait. But the sound was insistent. Not a polite call, but a command. A second later, it came again. Louder. Closer. It sounded like it was pressed right against the thin partition of the bathroom door. It was an urgent, sharp sound that sliced through the mundane noise of the shower. Annoyed, I twisted the tap shut with a sharp clunk. I wrapped a towel around myself, irritated by the interruption. I yelled out, "Yes, I'm coming!" Silence. I yanked the door open and searched the room. The bedroom door was closed. The room was empty, perfectly still. My irritation quickly gave way to a prickle of unease. The voice had been too close, too direct to be a distant echo. When I went downstairs, everyone was gathered outside under the full moon. I asked, "Who was just calling me upstairs?" They all looked at me blankly. No one had left the backyard. No one had even thought about going upstairs. I laughed it off. "Jet lag," I declared. But the image of that empty room, the absolute silence after such a clear voice, was now a small, sharp shard of doubt lodged in my mind. The evening drew to a close. As is custom in that small village, the entire power grid shuts off at a specific hour, plunging the entire area into absolute darkness until dawn. I retreated to my room just before the final blackout. I was exhausted. I fell into a heavy, deep sleep immediately. I woke up suddenly, not gradually, but violently, and I couldn't draw a breath. This was not a dream. I was awake, eyes wide open in the moonlight, completely conscious. Yet my lungs were utterly locked. It wasn't a restriction. It was a total, agonizing vacuum. I was choking on nothing. I fought silently, grappling with an invisible force that sat heavy on my chest, pressing the air out of me. The seconds stretched into an eternity of pure primal fear. Just as the panic became unbearable, the pressure lifted. My breath tore back into my body in a ragged, painful gasp. I convinced myself it was a physiological event, a spasm, a temporary paralysis. I calmed my racing heart and against every instinct tried to sleep. It was a severe mistake. I woke up again. The second episode was immediate and vicious. I shot upright, fighting. This time, the choking lasted longer, stealing more oxygen. pushing me closer to the edge of unconsciousness. When it finally released me, I was drenched in sweat, shaking, genuinely terrified that I was suffering a sudden, fatal affliction. I paced for 30 minutes, unable to rest, desperately seeking a rational explanation. But as the hours dragged on, weariness crept back in. Against my better judgment, I lay back down. And then, the final, harrowing awakening. I woke up for the third time, and this was pure, focused malice. The pressure was instantaneous and crushing. I sprung from the bed, still fighting to breathe, staggering across the room as my vision began to tunnel and blacken. I was choking, fully on my feet, frantically clawing at my own throat. I knew, in that split second, that I was facing something more than a medical anomaly. My life was being squeezed out by an unseen entity in the heavy Cambodian darkness. Just as I thought I was going to pass out, the pressure vanished with the speed of a slammed door. My lungs seized the air, forcing me to double over, trembling. Gasping, I straightened up, my heart hammering a brutal rhythm against my ribs. The room was deathly silent, illuminated only by the cold, indifferent light of the full moon that cast stark, long shadows. And then, the proof. As I stood there, regaining control, I saw movement. Not the gradual shifting of shadows as the moon moved, but a defined, utterly black silhouette. It was a hole in the light. It moved with unnatural speed, a sickeningly fluid dart of darkness that ripped across the illuminated patch of wall directly in front of me and vanished into the heavy blackness of the corner. It was real, it was fast, and it had been standing over me. I collapsed back onto the bed, saying a prayer, not out of faith, but out of absolute desperation. I prayed for the monster to leave, for the sun to rise, for my life to simply continue. The rest of the night was silent. The next morning, I was subdued. We had a Buddhist ceremony planned, monks coming to bless the house. I tried to focus on the busy day, pushing the horror aside. That evening, I spoke with my older cousin, the one who lived abroad. I kept my voice casual as she explained the purpose of the monks' visit. They came to bless the house, she said matter-of-factly. We've had some trouble, restless spirits. Then she offered the confirmation that froze the blood in my veins. She cited the room I was staying in. It belonged to another cousin who refused to sleep there anymore. She said he constantly complained about hearing someone calling his name while he was in the shower, and that he would be violently woken up at night by something unseen aggressively pulling at his leg. My heart stopped. The voice, the choking, the shadow. It wasn't a coincidence. The entity hadn't just tormented him, it had escalated the attack for me. I didn't need to elaborate on my experience. I knew everything I needed to know. I found an immediate, undeniable reason to relocate that night. I packed my bag and never slept in that house again. That trip was the end of my skepticism. Because you can't argue with something that almost choked the life out of you in the pitch black of a strange, haunted room.